my honor to introduce to you two brave women, Eileen and her daughter Allie, who, by the way, Allie is a new mom right here. So congratulations, Allie.
Thank you.
Allie, the stage is yours.
Where's the mic? Oh, I think she took it.
Mansion.
We need a mic.
We don't have a mic.
Yeah, we need the mic, I think.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You're okay. We have both.
We have both, yeah. Is this on?
Yeah.
Oh, that should help. Good evening. What a lovely event this is. We're so grateful to be able to speak to you tonight about our experience and how Prevail helped our family. It was the night of October 29, 2013. I was beginning my fall break. I am a teacher. 6 armed men came into our home at 5:15 in the morning. They put on gardening gloves that they had found in our garage. My husband Carl and I woke up to all 6 men surrounding our bed with guns pointed at us. They were screaming and demanding things. It was complete chaos that went on for the next 2 hours. Our younger daughter, Rachel, was away at college. She was in her junior year at DePaul. Allison was in the next room asleep, but soon became part of our horror. My husband Carl is disabled, and so he wears braces to walk and was kept in bed for the whole 2 hours with a blanket over his head and a gun pointed at him. He was powerless to help us, though he could hear the commotion going on all around him. He was beaten with drawers from our dresser and threatened throughout the night. I was shot almost immediately when I tried to run down the hall to a landline phone we had then in our home office. These guys ransacked our house. They were looking for cash, guns, drugs, anything valuable they could find. We have very little cash in our house and no guns, but they couldn't believe this. So they started pulling pictures off the walls. They looked under our mattresses and even in our fireplaces looking for stashed money. I had one little clay teapot that Allie had made in middle school full of coins. That was all I had to offer. So they went through our car keys and they had me match which keys went to which car as I lay on the floor. They went through our wallets looking for our bank cards. It was clear that I was going to the ATM. I'd always heard that you shouldn't get in a car with someone. So when he turned his back to me, I tried to run to a neighbor's. He was much faster than I was and tackled me to the ground. He then dragged me back inside and I was shot again. Another guy was kicking me in the head until I saw stars. I never knew that was a real thing. You really can see stars, but I did that night. And it actually was a moment of calm for me in the chaos. Then they grabbed the wedding rings off my hands. I was taken back outside and ordered into the back seat of my car where I was sexually assaulted. Next, I was made to drive to the ATM. I drove to the ATM with a gun at my head by the man who had just assaulted me in the back seat. I drove without glasses, bleeding from my foot where I had been shot. I'm not sure how I made it to where I was going because I'm almost blind without glasses. I glanced over at this guy who was sitting next to me and I thought, he just looks like a little boy with a gun who has no idea what he's doing. So I started to ask him some questions. We talked for a while. He told me about the high school that he went to, which was the same high school that my girls graduated from. He seemed very proud of the fact that he played on the football team. But then he told me that when he was 3, his father was killed and his mother abandoned him. I told him at the time I taught little 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and this was a terrible way for a little boy to grow up. Very, very sad, and I wished that I could have helped him. He said, "You want to help me after all I've done to you?" And I said, "Yes, I wish I could have. Is this really what you want to do with your life?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, it's not too late to make a change. You could have such a better life if you chose a different path." Then he said, "Look at me." I looked at him. We made eye contact for a minute, which was so surprising because all night long these guys had said not to look at them or they would kill us. I asked him then, "Why did you want me to look at you?" And he didn't answer. My detective later said, "This kid probably didn't have anybody that showed any caring for him or interest in him for a long time, and he wanted to know if I was for real." He did then promise me that he wouldn't kill our family. I found out later that while I was going to the ATM, Allie was being dragged around the house by her hair and sexually assaulted by 4 of these men. It was a gang rape. It was brutal, violent, and demeaning. And she was 25 years old in her 2nd year of law school. She then had to drive to the ATM. I tried to stay with her. We begged to stay together, but they pulled us apart and sent me back inside. Allie was gone for what seemed like an eternity. I was laying on the living room floor and starting to think that she wasn't coming back, and I needed to get up and get help. The house had become very quiet at that point. Carl called down to me, but we still weren't sure if these guys were in our house. Just as I tried to get up, the door came flying open, and Allie was coming back inside with the guy behind her. He had us go back upstairs to our bedroom and made us lay back on our bedroom floor, and then he ran out. The others seemed to have been gone. They had loaded 2 cars with electronics and other valuables that they had found. Now we were all in the same room, battered but alive. Allie was crying softly as she lay next to me. I knew it was over, at least I believed it was. The time was now 7:15. I could see the same clock that I looked at when they first surrounded our beds. It had been 2 hours. I lifted my head and I looked around at the damage in just our bedroom alone, and I said to Allie and Carl, "I think tomorrow cleaning day is going to be a lot harder than I had planned." Allie giggled like she always does, and then I knew we would be okay. But you can imagine the damage that was done to our home in 2 hours by 6 men. It was immense. We had to get help. Allie was the only one of us that could walk at this point. So she had to go out into the night, terrified these guys were out there still. She walked to 2 of our neighbors' houses, and they didn't respond. So she made a decision to cross the street. Our wonderful neighbor, who was inside meditating, answered the door. Together they called 911. I crawled to the stairs to wait for Allie, and that's when I heard sirens. That was the most beautiful sound on that early October morning. That is my story. It's no better and no worse than that of anyone else of sexual assault or violence victims. It's our family story and it's mine. What happened next in the hospital was the start of our road to recovery and where Prevail helped us start to heal.
When I first got to my hospital room, I was scared and felt very alone. The nurses took my mom for a bunch of tests, and I was wheeled into one of the emergency rooms by myself. Thank you. I turned on the TV just to have a distraction, and the Andy Griffith Show was on. I actually laughed out loud a little at the whistling theme music. It was such a contradiction from the night I had just been through. But as I was sitting alone, a woman arrived in my room. She told me her name was Caitlin and that she was from Prevail. She was there for whatever I needed. If I needed to talk or just have someone sit with me, she said she would be there. I couldn't believe it. It was probably only around 8 in the morning at the time, and someone had already driven all the way from Hamilton County just to sit in my hospital room with me. I asked if she could just stay. I didn't really want to talk, but I needed someone to sit in my room in between the nurses, doctors, and police coming in and out so I wouldn't be alone. She was exactly what I needed at the time. Eventually, I was taken to another room to have sexual assault testing done, and I had good friends and family with me. So Caitlin gave me her card and said she would follow up with me, that I could come use Prevail's free service at any time. Soon after we were home from the hospital, I got a call from Caitlin reminding me that I could come talk. I gladly accepted and met with Caitlin several times after the crime. She counseled me through some of my darkest moments. She taught me methods for coping with my pain that I continue to use today. She was so kind and helped so much in my healing. Everyone at Prevail was so willing to help. I noticed it from the moment I walked in, from the front desk receptionist, Beth, to the assistant director, Michelle. My experience with the individuals at Prevail showed me that I wanted to make something positive out of my crime.
I also made a promise to myself in the hospital that something good had to come of this family tragedy, or else it was just a terrible event that did a lot of damage to a lot of lives. So we're telling our story tonight to you who are supporting this wonderful place called Prevail. They were there for us in a very dark time. Because of Allie's experience with Caitlin and me getting to know Michelle personally, I decided that I wanted to start volunteering on Fridays at Prevail. I answer the phone as victims of all different kinds of crime call in, asking for help. The stories are often just heartbreaking, but I feel very good knowing that I can direct their call to one of the advocates at Prevail that will do anything and everything to help them at that point. Some of these people walk into Prevail at the most desperate time in their lives, with nowhere else to turn. They're immediately connected to a professional who can get them help and show them the compassion that they need at the time. The victims are treated with dignity and respect, just as we were. The individuals at Prevail are truly special. They care deeply, and it's an honor to work with them.
That morning in the hospital was the first I had ever heard of Prevail. But their impact on my life was astounding, and I am just one of the many survivors that have gone on to live their lives at peace because of the amazing work done at Prevail. We all need to surround those who are victims of sexual assault and other crimes with the kindness, compassion, time, and resources that my family was given. It is the reason why we can hold our heads high and speak to you today. We are survivors, we are thriving, and we are no longer victims. My parents are back living in the house that we made so many great memories in. My dad has started his own consulting firm that's doing very well. My mom retired a year ago from teaching after 35 years. She is now devoting the second half of her life to her using her experiences to help others. My sister Rachel graduated from college and plans to get a master's degree in counseling. I finished law school, got married, and as you heard just 3 weeks ago, my husband and I welcomed our first son, Neil, to the world. Thank you. I apologize if there's spit up on my dress right now. On behalf of my family, we want to say thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you for listening to our story. We are very grateful for Prevail and for all of you. Thank you.
Oh, that feels good. Very cool. Thank you.